Okay. Have you already put your answers in? Are you ready for this? How many of you said yes? We'll do this the old-fashioned way. The real-time updating doesn't seem to be happening. We've got, like I said, a lot of layers of technology. In my classrooms at CWI, I have never had any troubles. We're trying to do things, and this is, Max is helping us out. We're trying to record the session at the same time we're doing the session, and so that introduces extra layers of technology. Those things are going to happen sometime. Let's go back to the slides, Max. I'll just talk for a few minutes. Okay. Shall I? Okay, let's go to the next slide.
I promise I'm not trying to throw a wrench into this.
That's okay.
Okay.
Max, sorry, let me give you a little bit of background on me. Me for a minute. I like that subject. I have not always been in education. I grew up here in Boise. Sorry. Started at Boise State College in 1974, and my undergrad work was in physics at Boise State College, and I became an engineer at Hewlett Packard, an information technology engineer, and I worked at HP for 31 years. Took retirement in 2005 and thought, I'd like to try teaching. And so I went to a little for-profit college named Seneca College, and they called me up and they said, we need you to be here at 5:30 tonight. We've got an instructor who's left, and we need you to come teach databases class. And I had 3 weeks left of that. They run in 4-week modules. There are 3 weeks left of that module, and so I showed up, had 8 students, taught that 3-week module, and what I was going to do is teach for a little while, and then I was going to start up my consulting company and make millions. I fell in love with teaching in 3 weeks. In 3 weeks I was hooked on teaching, and so my millions of dollars dream went out the door. But yeah, that was 13 years ago, and I love teaching. I really enjoyed being an engineer, but teaching was better, and so I ended up doing it. So my background is mixed, though, because when I retired from HP, I decided I wanted to take my interest in a little bit different direction. So I did a master's and a PhD in psychology, or PhDs in education psychology. And so I had this sort of checkered background. I love teaching, but I also really love technology. And the idea of banning cell phones in the classroom just goes against my inner grain. And so I thought, I wonder what we can find out from the literature. So I went out and did a bunch of searches, and it turned out I've been taking advantage of reduced tuition for those of us who have the titanium highlights, and just have finished up a master's in curriculum and instruction. This is essentially free education. Why would you not do it, right? And I had a research methods class, and so the idea, I had a project I had to do, and I thought, well, let's go ahead and find out what we can about mobile phone use in the classroom. And so I've pulled around a bunch of documents, and you're welcome to take a look at these if you want to, in the course of things. But what I found was, back? Oh, I was going to point, okay. And I'll bet I can't point it. Can I point at this without making an advance?
You can use that laser right there if you need to. It's just right here.
It's okay. Okay. I'll just point from.
But yeah, you definitely can. It's not touch.
I know you have to be careful with smartphones. So. Okay, so articles written up to 2013 recommended banning phones. They were really focused on the distraction that was caused by cell phones. Anybody seen any distraction caused by cell phones in the classroom? Seen this routine, or maybe that's right. See this in the classroom? Well, that was what those, up till 2013, it was, we got to get rid of these things. And just right at 2013, there was this switch in the focus of the articles. And they went from that to, well, and it was almost like they said,
We give.
We give up. Exactly. That was exactly what it felt like. I said, well, these things, now we can go. These things are here to stay. If you want to get rid of cell phones in your classroom, you're pushing a rope. The students have them, it's ubiquitous, and they're really good at them. So instead of, starting in 2013, instead of saying we got to figure out ways to get rid of them, it switched to we need to figure out ways to integrate mobile phones into the content mastery, into the student's ability to master the content. This is the way our incoming students in our colleges live. Those phones are attached to them and they live. And there is potential for helping them learn how to use these things to master content, because they're not going to master content the way I was taught to master content in 1974 at Boise State College. It was memorize everything. Here's a book, and here is your slide rule. Isn't that a glorious thing? How many of you have seen a slide rule before? Have you heard the term? Never heard the term? Oh, bless your heart. You're such a baby. This is wonderful. Actually, it's not that you're a baby, it's that I'm old. And I'm okay with that. I hit 65 this year. I took the maiden years. Earlier on, you turn, you get to be 4, you get to be 5. I made it to 65, hoping to make it to 66, right? When I started college at Boise State College, I brought with me my slide rule that I had bought in high school, actually in junior high school. I was in accelerated math in junior high. I love mathematics, I love physics. I love mathematics kind of by itself, but it was, I sort of scratched my head. I learned how to do the mathematics and it was a lot of fun. But I scratched my head, I didn't understand what was going on. When I got into physics at Boise State, the light went on and I said, now I see what this is for. It was wonderful. Well, this is what I had. This is the tool that I had. And you can go to the next slide. Oh, hang on, let's go back. Let me make sure, okay? Here's some conclusions from the literature. This is, you can see I'm a kind of a bouncer, I'm kind of a guy. It's going to be difficult to effectively, productively use mobile phones in your classroom if your primary presentation mode is lecture. It's hard to make that happen. If you're going to integrate your mobile phone, the mobile phones in your classroom and have your students, help your students learn how to use them as learning devices, you really have to have them solving relevant, loosely structured problems. So I guess you guys actually did, we couldn't see the answers, we actually did answer some questions. There are some other kinds of questions that you can put up, and it's kind of fun to do those things, but if all you're doing is just 2 or 3 of those kinds of exercises and you're sort of gluing that, kind of sticking it on to a lecture presentation, most of the use of cell phones in your classroom is going to be this thing. Most of the time they're going to be either openly or surreptitiously texting. You're going to be using them what they normally use them for. If you're going to have them help your students learn how to use them as real information access and problem-solving devices, you have to have them solve the problem. Doing so effectively requires some kind of a system. I'm going to show you one. And then it's helpful if students can track their own progress, like the experience point bar in a lot of the games that our students play. Tracking their progress through the lesson, because these are impatient people, right? Instant gratification is just not fast enough. And so as they're waiting for you to get on with your lecture, they would actually, even if you're lecturing, if you've got a bar that's going across that shows how much longer you're going to lecture, that really helps out these students. Let's go to the next one. So as I looked at this, I thought, wait a minute, this looks really familiar. This whole thing sounds really familiar. I started at Boise State College in 1974 with this thing. And by golly, we sent people to the moon with these things. When Neil Armstrong stepped out onto the moon, in the space capsule was one of these. It actually wasn't a straight one like this. It was actually kind of a little circular thing because it took up a little bit less space in that space capsule, but this is what they took. And I started with engineering instructors at Boise State College who could work miracles with these things. It was just amazing to watch them operate with these things, and I actually got pretty good with it. But and that was in 1974. In 75, Hewlett-Packard, for whom I had gone to work, came out with a new thing called a scientific calculator, the HP 35 scientific calculator. Some of you know this from ancient history, right? This is.
My dad had one.
Your dad had one? Oh,
that's the calculator that I learned on, the HP 35.
And it was a big, clunky monster device with, really a display that sort of quit working after a while. Segments of the display would quit working after a while. But it was revolutionary. And all the things that we can do, and this is, by the way, this is a fairly complex slide rule. They had simple ones. This is a decimal trig log slide rule. This is one that you can do trigonometry with this, you can do logarithmic functions with this. There's lots of good stuff you can do with these things. And guess what? The instructors in my classes did. Guess what they said about bringing calculators to class?
Can't do it.
Can't do it! Leave those calculators out. What do you think the reasoning was?
For themselves. Students won't think for themselves.
They won't think for themselves. They won't think for themselves. The first excuse was, well, not everybody could afford one. And they were right. This is a $400 machine in 1975. That was a month's wages for me. I had started working at HP. When I was on the production line, I was making $425 a month. So they were right. Not everybody could afford one. And that lasted for about a year and a half. And then HP came out with the HP 21, which is $125. And suddenly you get on a payment plan. If you were literally, I was an employee, so I think mine cost me $85 internal cost. Still a lot of money for me. It was really, I had to really bite the bullet, but I got that thing. And pretty soon pretty soon we had a lot of them in the physics department. It was a competition because some of the guys had, and it was guys, sorry ladies, but this is the 1970s. It was guys. I started my 3-semester physics sequence at Boise State College, 60 people, 3 women in the classroom. By the end of the 3 semesters, there were 13 of us left. And in that case, it was all guys. It wasn't a woman-friendly environment at that time. We started out, all of us had these things. We sort of split. There was the HP calculator contingent and the TI calculator, Texas Instruments calculator contingent. TI calculators had little parentheses buttons. So you actually built, if you had a long calculation, a long equation or expression, you built it piece by piece. On the TI, on the HP, you had to keep track of a lot of stuff in your head, and you had what they call reverse Polish notation. Pretty soon, everybody could afford one. So then we went, and the instructors still didn't want them in the classroom. The instructors had these, and they couldn't see any reason to go to a calculator. They thought it was actually kind of a sissy thing to do, right? And it went from, well, not everybody can afford one, to, what if you get out into the field and your batteries go dead? Then what are you going to do? And so they wanted to, and they did, and they banned calculators for years. We had to fight for years to be able to get those calculators into the classroom. Long past, and this is kind of my point, in education, tend to be years behind. Long past when it was really, when there was really a valid argument to ban those calculators in the classroom, instructors were still banning them. Long past that. I think we have the same kind of thing. We've got a mobile phone. And if I were to draw a picture here, this young woman has a mobile phone, and this is a portal into a world of knowledge such as the world has never known. It's a portal, and it's an amazing thing. And I have been amazed what my students can do with these phones. I have posed more and more challenging problems for them, and unfortunately, I've based whole class periods on 1 or 2 problems, and they have those problems solved in 10 minutes. And so I've had to hurry and scramble and find some more problems for them to solve because they are really good at solving problems this way. And not only that, they love solving problems using their phones. And that's the key to this whole idea of integrating cell phones, mobile phones, and other kinds of mobile devices. The mobile phone is the one I focus on because it's ubiquitous. Every student has a mobile phone. Most of the time they've got a new mobile phone. They could be starving. They can, only afford a meal every other day, but they've got the newest, hottest mobile phone all the time. And they're really, really good at this. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, so when you talk about a system, a structure, you really, if we're going to be effective in integrating mobile phones in the classroom, we have to do it within some sort of a structure. And so I have one structure. By the way, we've been playing with a thing called Integrative. Are there other applications like this that you can use? You heard about some of the others? What ones have you heard of?
Oh, like Socratic?
Like Integrative, yeah.
There's quizzes.
Quizzes.
There's Kahoots.
Kahoots.
There's Quizlet.
Mm-hmm.
There's Clickers.
Yeah. So there's a whole collection of these things. I'm not being paid by Integrative. We thought I were, but I'm not. And so I just chose Integrative because that was the first one I started playing with. And give you an idea, so I played with, there's a free version of Integrative, and you can build quizzes, and you can do things that up to a limited number of students. You have only one classroom available, and so on and so on and so on. I sprang for, I think it's like $80 a year or something like that for the pro license. And that gives me more capabilities, larger numbers of students, and like basically in definite numbers of students, those kinds of things. And most of these applications, most of these techniques have a similar kind of thing. I like Socratic, and I like the way and I think Oops does the same thing. Oops seems as I've talked with instructors who are really into this stuff, they say, oh, Socratic is boring, Oops is a lot more fun. Well, it's a lot more fun if you're in K-12, and it's K-12 teachers who just love Kahoots because there are all kinds of games that kids can play, and you get a bunch of 5th graders, and boy, they're really going at it, and they get really serious about this. For college students, Integrative has been really great for me. And it's great in 2 ways. I can build quizzes and other kinds of exercises in advance, or if something strikes me in the classroom, what I found is that I can say, okay, great, let's build a quiz. And my students and I, go ahead and pick up your phones, and we'll do a keyword kind of a thing, and I'll say, what do you want to, what portion of this list do you want to focus on for this quiz? And they'll start putting words in. I can see words, and we can do counts. We can do the words, which word occurs the most often. We can say, okay, let's focus on that one. And then I'll say, okay, tell me what the first question should be, and I'll type questions in, and I can say, okay, that's a good question. Let's go ahead and put that on the quiz, and I can pop quiz up in Integrative and build a quiz right in front of everybody. And so they become part of the content presentation and the content assessment. And what I find is that, and this is not everybody, so not everybody in the room is engaged. I don't see eyes from everybody. There are still students who are texting in the course of this. They're saying, oh yeah, everybody's got the phone on now, I can get away with some texting. Fine. Most of the time though, for like 80 or 90% of my students, I see eyes. And that's a lot better than if I lecture. That's a lot higher rate. So what I'm trying to do is engage them, not only in the material itself, but in the presentation of the material. The more I can engage them in the presentation of the material and the assessment of the material, I find the more they learn. And we're building formative assessments together. And then when they hit the summative assessments, they get much better results when I do this. This integrative learning thing, I got introduced to this earlier this year. We had a presentation downtown that was hosted by CWI that had Kim Filer. She's director for the Center of Excellence in Teaching and Learning at Virginia Tech. And she talked about integrative learning. This is a methodology that's supported by the Association of American Colleges and Universities. And it's really about making connections, synthesizing and transferring knowledge to complex new situations. So, next slide. So there are 5 steps in this particular methodology. The first thing is to identify knowledge and skills. So what is it that I want to have my students master in a particular class? And then we want to activate prior knowledge. Okay, so I think I will not go to Integrative right now. I was going to go to Integrative, and I'll just kind of fill in and tell you what I had planned. What I had planned was to go to Integrative and have you help me start building a device to activate prior knowledge. So I will, though, give you a sample. I just watched over the weekend what I thought was a really good documentary about the Himalayas, about the formation of the Himalayas. Very, very interesting. I'm an engineer psychologist, right? Sort of an engineer at heart, sort of a psychologist. I kind of hit both sides, both hemispheres. Not a lot of engineer psychologists around. Most of the time, those two kinds of people kind of just, yeah, they go, oh, what do you want to talk about that stuff for? I really love geology. Really enjoy learning more about geology, and this thing talks about geology. So, if I wanted to start a lesson about geology, about the Himalayas, and let's say we're in a college classroom, what is likely to be students' prior knowledge about the Himalayas? What am I going to do to activate their prior knowledge and get them thinking about the Himalayas?
Keywords.
Okay, keywords. What are they likely to already know about the Himalayas? Not much.
Yeah.
Not much, but I'll bet there's something they might know.
Mountains.
Mountains, okay. Okay.
I ask them what they want to know. Like they might.
Could do that.
You could flip that if they don't know.
Yeah, I can do that. How about this? Where are they? Now, there might be some students in the classroom who know where those things are. So I can get into Integrative. I can pull out your phones, and I can have a multiple choice question with 4 answers. And I can do something similar to what was going to happen with that space race thing. Have a bar, and I can say, okay, yeah, multiple choice. Where are the Himalayas? Well, answer A, between Meridian and Cunha. That's answer A. Answer B, between Europe, North America. Answer C, between North America and South America. Answer D, between India and Asia. And so I can say, okay, put your answers in, and Integrative shows what answers are being put in. And I can have a bar like that that shows what everybody thinks. What would you guess would be the most commonly chosen answer there?
North and South America.
North and South America? Now, I'll bet that. I would think that would be the same one. What's the correct answer? D, yeah. They lie between India and Asia. Okay, so now I've activated prior knowledge. Sometimes I've activated prior knowledge. They've given me an answer. Sometimes their prior knowledge is correct and sometimes it's not. But now they're thinking and they've got their phones out and they're actually participating and doing something with their phones other than texting or Google searching. Maybe they did Google search. Maybe they cheated. Do I care? No. No, what I want is, and this is the thing, what I want is to have them thinking about the Himalayas. And if they use that portal to knowledge that they've got, they hit that thing, it's a formative assessment. I don't have to care about that stuff. Okay, so now I've activated prior knowledge. We're starting to talk about the real world. We know it's not between Meridian, the Himalayas are not between Meridian and Cuna, right? We've got that figured out. Now, I'm going to say, how am I going to get them to apply their prior knowledge to new contexts using an ill-structured problem? And this is an interesting qualifier, isn't it?
Mhm.
Ill-structured. The contention of the group of people who are into this integrative learning thing is that we do too much work for them. As instructors, we do too much. What we want them to do is, what we need to do is pose more open kinds of things. So we have established, here's an example. We've established that the Himalayas are between India and Asia. Why? Why are they there? That's ill-structured for me. You can think about what ill-structured really means. Now, I can take that farther, and I can start talking about plate tectonics. And I can introduce a whole bunch of stuff, and then ask them why. But instead of that, I just say, why? All right, yeah, great, they're between India and Asia, why? Find out. And then I'll have a multiple choice kind of a thing. And I'll say, it's because of global warming. No, answer A is because of global warming, answer B, so on and so on and so on. Answer C might be because of plate tectonics. But I want them to go out and find out. I'm not even going to show them the quiz. I'm going to say, come on, let's have it. And in fact, instead of doing a multiple choice quiz, what I might do is just have a multiple answers open for them. And they can go out and they get those phones out, and boy, and I can tell you they did this a heck of a lot faster than I thought they could. I thought 10 minutes for that, 30 seconds later I've got answers. I'm going, geez, I don't have enough material. One thing I guarantee you, if you integrate cell phones into your content presentation, you're gonna need a lot of sponge exercises, right? Sponge exercises are exercises you have that soak up extra time. In case you've got students who get through things very, very quickly, you give them some more stuff to do so that they're doing active learning kinds of things throughout your whole presentation period. So I say, why? Well, it turns out that 400 million years ago, the Indian plate broke away from the supercontinent that virtually all the main continents we have were part of at that time, broke away, headed to the east for just a little bit, and then started heading northwest. And it headed at 12 inches a year. That is, in geologic terms, that is pedal to the metal. This thing was, it has warp factor now, it was streaking through what is now the Indian Ocean. It was the far western Pacific at the time. Went zinging up and slammed into the Asian continent at a huge rate of speed, and a lot of that material had to go someplace, so it started folding. Well, they're going to find that out on their own, and they're going to be using their cell phones to do it. Is it cheating? No. Now, what if they don't memorize all this stuff?
So
65-year-old ear.
it doesn't matter. It's now put in there, so if they hear about it again, it will spark memories.
Learning is a different thing now from what it was in 1974 when I started at Boise State College. Learning meant memorizing. Everything went here. I don't see the world that way anymore, and this is fine for me because my neurons aren't firing as well as they used to, right? I can't take things in. What I've got is my cell phone is now a knowledge device. It's a knowledge access device. And what I have to do is not particularly memorize things. I have to memorize where to go to find things. And this is how students are operating now. They're very strategic learners. They're what Ken calls strategic learners. And they know how to find stuff. What if they don't have their phones, right? They held up pretty well for a 60-year-old device, right? Not quite 60, 55-year-old device. This is the old reasoning. What if their phones break down? What if their phones don't work? Do their phones ever break down? Virtually never. Virtually never, unless they drop it. And then they have a new one the next day. And by 2 days later, all their apps are all loaded and the whole thing's reconfigured. It's amazing. They're amazing with these things. So what we want to do is challenge them to apply things to new contexts. We've got the Himalayas, and they're the highest mountains in the world, and they're not only high, but they're 1,600 miles long. There are more tall mountains. There are 400 peaks that are taller than any other peak, than any peak anyplace else in the world. 400 of the peaks in the Himalayas are taller than any peak anywhere else in the world. Gee, I wonder if that has any... Excellent. Perfect timing. We only got... do we have 5 minutes? Do we have 10? Oh, that's right. We have to quit count. Okay, got a couple of minutes. Okay, let me sum up. Let's go to the next slide. Let me make sure. Okay, I'm going to do this. Go ahead. Okay, here's my summary. I've only scratched the surface of these things. But I'm really excited about the potential for integrating cell phones into the presentation of the material. I am more comfortable, I think, than a lot of teachers with letting go of control of that material. And I think that's really crucial, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pose ill-structured problems, and I'm going to have my students take control. And I've done this in class, and it worked for most students spectacularly, way better than I expected. But it was really scary. And once in a while, you get tripped up. Because once in a while, they'll find something that is just completely off the wall. And we have students. I had this semester, I was teaching 3 classes in spring semester, and I had 3 students who were clearly on the autism spectrum. And they said things that, there's a little less filtering sometimes for students on the spectrum. And they'll say things that are going to catch you by surprise. So you have to be ready for that, and it really takes a big adjustment. Just like if I walk into a classroom, and I just did this, right? I said, how many have seen a slide rule? Haven't even heard the term, right? This was the thing. And it was, by the instructors, considered the only thing. Took a long time for that to change. It's going to take us a while to adapt. There's still a lot of disagreement and confusion about whether these things are benefits or they're distractions. Depends, I believe, largely on how we present material. If we are primarily pushing material out, if we're primarily lecturing, cell phones, I think, are a net distraction. But if we can change that presentation to, okay, here's a problem, here's a problem, here's a problem, figure it out and tell me, then the cell phone comes into its own, and boy, they're really good. And that needs to fit into a system, and I really like the integrative system. I like this series of steps. Activate prior knowledge, move their thinking to new ways of applying these kinds of things, and go with that. I think that stuff works out well. Next slide. Next slide. Love this picture. Any questions? So my slides, go ahead.
I was like, Integrative. Can you assign quizzes where you could go back in and see who answered what?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and you can have the names displayed on the screen as they're answering or not. But you have access, and Socratic gives you all kinds of reports, percentages, percentage participation, those kinds of things. The only thing I haven't figured out yet is how to move data from Socratic into Blackboard. so that I could actually do summative assessments on the fly in Socratic. I love this idea of being able to just say, hey, there's a, the conversation has gone away I didn't expect, but it's a great thing. Let's build a quiz. And I'd love to be able to take the results of those things and put them into my grade book so that I can do summative assessments. I haven't figured out how to do that. I can't find anybody who knows about that. So I'm just using it for formative assessments. All right, thank you very much for coming. Slides there's a Google Docs link. Should be able to see the slides if you want to get copies of those things. And my email address is ericminer@cwidaho.tc. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
So you've seen Apollo 13,
Yes,
and there's, all right, let's bring them in, and everybody pulls out.
everybody pulls up the schedule. Yeah.
Now students can see the movie, but don't know what that is.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that brings tears to my eyes. I mean, literally makes